Well, welcome to the Reinventor's Mindset, insights about transformation with leaders who've done it from the inside. I'm Ashton Jones and I'm writing Bold Water, a book about transformation. Today I'm speaking with Dr. Corinna Galliano, a researcher at the University of Sydney Business School, whose work sits at the intersection of entrepreneurship, paradox theory, and how founders actually experience the tensions that most business schools teach as strategy problems. Born in Italy, trained as a management consultant, and now an accredited Vedic meditation teacher, Corinna has an unusual range. We first met on a course called Leading in a Post-Crisis World, which, given everything that's happened since, turned out to be more relevant than either of us expected. Welcome, Corinna. Let's dive in.
Thanks, Aston, for having me here.
So, Corinna, your research puts you inside some of the most dynamic working environments. You know, you spend a lot of time, obviously, with the youngest and brightest minds in Australia, but also with founders, CEOs, and people that are mid transformation. And I'm really curious what you see as potentially some of the patterns in how people and leaders experience transformation versus how they might actually describe it afterwards or in hindsight or in retrospect.
I believe that what's happening is that when people are going through a transformation, they usually not that aware that they are going through transformation. They are aware is that the struggles they are facing, the uncomfortable feelings, and then they would realize that that was a transformation only looking backwards. And so
Mm,
that's why what I try to do in the classroom is to make that process visible to my students. And experiential learning gives a great opportunity to create those disorienting dilemma, these uncomfortable moments for students. And then I guide them through processes of self-reflection and sense making that then allow them to realize, oh, there was a moment of transformation. And why was a moment of transformation is because very often we start questioning our beliefs, our
mm.
assumptions, our values, and a new view of the world is emerging for us. And that can feel very uncomfortable.
And can you think of any moments where, when you've been running these experiential sessions with students or in different settings, where someone's had sort of that aha moment where they maybe came into it and they weren't quite sure what to expect, and then you've put them in a situation or put them through an experiential learning experience, and you've actually kind of seen in real time, maybe, their eyes open to the fact that they are experiencing something they didn't quite expect and or learning about themselves kind of in real time.
There are two things that usually happen. The first one is students that come to take entrepreneurship classes
Yes.
that don't think they might be entrepreneurial or
Mm,
innovative or creative. Then they put through this process of trying to create something from nothing with zero
mm,
resources. And they start realizing, oh, actually, it's not that hard. It's impossible. Actually, I could develop those skills. I
mm.
could become that version of myself that I never thought I would be able. And the way they get to that haha moment is by showing them processes to get there. So instead of
Mm.
saying, "Oh, entrepreneurship is a skill, you have this trait," and this is well documented also on how the academic literature has developed. Academic literature has developed from first looking at entrepreneurship as a trait, what makes, entrepreneurs successful and looking at all the traits. And then they realize if they were looking at all the research, the outcome of that personality would be everyman. So there are so many different skills that
Mm, mm.
make someone successful that there is not really a complete definite picture of what will make a successful entrepreneur. And so the academic world is now moving, looking at processes, looking at
Yes,
practices. And that's
yes.
what I teach to my student is look at the process. And there are some of the processes that have been found facilitating and accelerating the learning that entrepreneur needs to go through to learn how to do things faster. So fast track that learning that then enable you to be successful as an entrepreneur. And so that's what I teach processes. And then if you look at something from a process level, now becomes much more easy to approach than thinking
mm,
about, oh, I need to be an extroverted person to be successful
mm.
entrepreneur, or I need to be having low neuroticism, which is I need to be very emotionally stable.
Yeah.
It really changes. And then it gets them to start looking at other entrepreneurs or successful entrepreneur and looking at, okay, what is that they do? What they do in the everyday practices?
Mm,
How do they transform themselves? And then the other example that come to mind is instead looking at values
mm,
in our society, especially when it comes to the business world. We have a very narrow view of what are the values that we use in making decisions, which is
mm.
business value. Now society has evolved a little bit further. So we have the business value, and then we have, oh, we need to also do good for society. And so the social mission and the business value,
Mm.
business venture now are the two values that you would see companies embracing and using those to justify their decision. And what I do, I bring this framework. It's called the economics of work to the classroom, and and I'm using fiction that where I'm acting myself with my colleague. We show that actually actors within the organization leverage much more than just two value sets, and we make that evident through this little the sitcom that we created.
Okay.
Now we get students to analyze processes of justification and critique that we can see in the media, and they start pulling apart the values that different people use to create different arguments. And the aha moment that students develop through this is that they realize that everyone might see from their own point of view their argument legitimate because
Mm,
they're
mm,
drawing to a specific value. And that's a great transformation because it helps students to become more empathetic, become
mm,
better at engaging in process of justification and critique, and hopefully will contribute to have less of that polarization that we see right now in the world.
mm.
Is another important haha moment. How do I know that they go through this haha moment? Is because I ask them to write reflection portfolios at the end of the unit, and they also write reflection logs throughout the unit. So these are
Right.
some of the insights that emerge.
As you were speaking about the second aha moment there, Karina, where my mind went was, something I've definitely seen over the last probably decade in business is when I started my career, if a senior leader said, we need to do this, people would just kind of fall in line and get it done. But particularly in sort of the most recent generations that are joining the workforce, being really clear about the why we're doing this, what is the purpose of what we're trying to do, how does that purpose serve not just a business outcome, but also a broader social outcome, I've very much seen as a much more prominent part of business culture in Australia and leadership culture in Australia over the last decade. And particularly, I've seen that in my current role. In order to drive innovation and transformation, people really need to understand the why. Why is this important? Why do we need to change? Like everyone's pretty comfortable going on a similar pattern until something kind of disrupts you from the outside. And so it's quite difficult to disrupt from the inside or to transform from the inside unless you've really been able to articulate the why and have that why connect with people beyond just, if you like, the logical reasons and arguments. So I'm just interested in your reflection on that because you're seeing students who are before they've kind of entered the workforce, or maybe if they've been in the workforce and they're wanting to step out. How do you connect students with their why and their purpose through these experiences that you're giving them?
So the one number one thing is giving them agency, so they get to choose what they want to work on.
Yes.
We always recommend to choose something that they connect personal with it. So whether it's in the living post-crisis world, they would work on solving a global local challenge of their choice
Mm,
through applying those leadership methodologies that we teach them, whether it's in the collaboration course, we give them a performance they have to create, and that performance should showcase how we could solve a collaboration problem that prevents addressing a global local challenge.
Mm.
And in the unit on entrepreneurship, we get them to choose to create their own entrepreneurial opportunity, and we ask them to ask themselves what societal problem are you solving with that
Mm.
opportunity and how that resonate or not with your values. So at the first step of all the courses I teach is always asking students, what do you value, and
Mm.
get them to spend a little bit of time in identifying that, either through activity or through some self-reflection. And then from there, they can practice what's called in academic term reflexivity, and to see whether the action, the choices that they make are aligned with the values that they hold or not. And if not, what does that mean for the type of life you're creating for yourself, and the
Mm.
alignment and the level of inner fulfillment that you might feel or not. In the entrepreneurship class, I also give a case study that looks at, is this the right entrepreneurial opportunity for you? So try to get them to answer that questions for themselves, because that was the one thing that really I missed as I had to choose my university degree.
Mhm.
And no one ever got me to think, well, the word you'll choose will determine the type of lifestyle you have,
Yes.
and where you're gonna be, the type of whether you're gonna be stable or not. And back in the days, there was still this idea: you study something and you'll do that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And when I realized that perhaps this is not totally aligned with my value, it was a little bit like difficult for me. It took me several years to understand, well, you are not bound to this. I was an engineer by training,
Ah, right.
and I didn't like the idea of sitting behind a computer all day to do. I was a structural civil engineer, so that means sitting back behind a computer and do calculation all days. And then I had the aha moment, well, I don't have to be bound to this. So let me change my life. And that's how
Yeah.
I got to do a PhD in business management. And I decided to go on the other end and study qualitatively entrepreneurs and leaders.
Yeah.
And that was a big transformation.
Yeah, it would have been, yeah.
But it's what I try to give students.
Yeah. If it's okay, I wouldn't mind just staying a little bit on your own personal transformation journey for a little bit, Corinna. I've spoken and interviewed about 5 or 6 executives, founders, and senior leaders recently, and I am very much seeing that a lot of them are adopting this mindset of a portfolio career where they have sort of their main career, but they are increasingly being more goal oriented and more deliberate about the interests and activities they pursue alongside their main career. And a lot of practitioners who are looking at academia as an area that they want to invest more time in and they want to spend more time in. And so I'm curious to learn a little bit more about your own journey into doing your PhD. And then also, so how did you end up in Australia, having been born in Italy?
It was one of those things that you could say, if you're a spiritual person, you would say, I was destined to come.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes,
when I was growing up, my pen friend, all my classmates' pen friends were from, the States or from UK, and my pen
yes.
friend, I was the only one having a pen friend from Australia.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
wow,
just
wow.
by chance. That was by
Yes.
chance, and I still have a little kangaroo pin that this girl sent to me. She was in Adelaide. Well, then forgot all about it and went on Australia. I didn't even know where Australia was on the map.
Yeah, 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 it's very far away from Italy, that's for sure.
And then I did my engineering degree, and following, the perfect parents plan. If you study engineering, you'll have a successful career. There will be no money problem. I came from a family that were not, there was no abundance of money, so I
Mm,
followed the
mm.
plan. Even if I was really passionate with theater and acting, so I went up with that plan. And 2004, according to the plan, I landed my first job in an architecture firm. I hadn't graduated yet, so I was about to graduate. So started working there, and the founder of the firm came to me, Corinna, you are really intelligent and smart woman. You must leave Italy. You need
Oh,
to go to Australia. in 2004, and he said, I've talked with people in, the economics department. They told me this country is going to be done in 10 years. There will be no opportunities.
Wow.
You need to go away.
Yeah.
And back then, my English was really basic, just school level. And so I went there. I looked for Australia, and I realized flights were very expensive.
Yeah, they would have been.
And I found on this site a scholarship. It's called Australian Endeavour Award. To get to Australia, there were different categories, and I thought this looks too complicated, so I closed it down and just parked it. Fell in
Yes.
love with a man from Milano, so moved to Milano and got to work in consultancy company. So that was fun. It was a very dynamic environment. And from there, I got to work in a clean tech startup for 3 years. So I was having lots of fun. I was learning. As you said, the entrepreneurial environment is very dynamic. You see
Mm, mm.
everything changing. So it was really amazing. And then the whole thing blew up because we had in Italy, 2012, there was the government threatened to withdraw feed-in tariff from renewable energy companies
Oh, right.
and make it that retroactive. And so
Oh, wow.
all the investors in the market quit, including ours. So all the companies in the sector start closing down one after the other. There was no work. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do a MBA. It was in global business and sustainability. I arrived at the end of the MBA, and the director said, "Oh, there is not work out there, not even for getting internship."
Mm,
And
mm.
I was like furious, like, "Come on, like that's the one thing you should be doing. You should find
Thanks.
for us opportunity." And so I said, get me someone, a professor in Australia that is able to invite me there, and I can apply for this Australia Endeavour Award. So I reopened that. That was about
Wow.
10 years later. I got it. I came in Australia for 6 months in this exchange program. And I realized I really like the university environment here. It's different than in Italy. It's
Mm,
inspiring, and I really would like to get in a place where it seems there are more opportunity than in Ity right now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
then I applied for a PhD. I got the scholarship, and to be honest, at the time I didn't really know what a PhD was, what
Yeah.
it meant to. And so I came here pretty much at 35-year-old, and everyone in Italy would say, "Oh, you're very courageous. You're very courageous." And I was like, I don't know, like it to me seems like normal. I was really surprised how everyone was telling me how courageous I was. Also because I had to terminate my romantic relationship to come here.
Mm,
And then I came here and I realized then why everyone was telling me I was courageous, because the changes of expectation I had to go through compared to what was in my mind was
yes.
massive.
Yes.
It had a massive toll on my mental health.
Yes. Yes.
So it was the cultural change, language change,
Yes.
everything. Also the change in terms of comfort. I mean, I was living in a beautiful home, beautiful house, like a princess, and I arrived here to share living with other. And that's when I learned Vedic meditation. So I've already by then tried different techniques. I've done my first meditation course in 2004,
Yes.
meditating in and out, but didn't ever even have a proper technique. And I went and I learned Vedic meditation. And the thing that really changed for me with that is that now I was able to meditate every day
Mm,
without effort. And I could feel day by day that all that turmoil that was going inside myself was getting like better and better. And for me, the main thing, Ashton, was I was feeling extremely lonely. PhD is a
mm,
lonely journey for everyone that wants to do it. I didn't have a corporate job. I was doing PhD and I was alone in a country that to go back and say hi to my friends and my family took
yeah.
24 hours. And so the level of loneliness that I was experiencing was massive. And it
For sure.
was the thing that I feared the most in my life.
Yes.
Even before coming to Australia, I was completely terrified.
Yes.
And this meditation practice, what it gave me was that sense I'm not alone.
Mm,
I have my own self. And that's
yeah.
it's a it's so big when you get in touch with the source of your own self, that is
Yes.
so big that loneliness can't be there anymore. And so
Yeah.
that practice really gave me very solid ground from where then to complete my PhD. And then I was
Mm.
seeing all my colleagues around me all anxious. Oh, what about our jobs? And I've noticed that I was walking that path
Yes.
without those fears that once where I was the most fearful of all.
Yes.
And so that was then I really started living my life differently.
Yeah.
Instead
Yeah.
of chasing, instead of pushing, sit back, relax, and enjoy, be present,
Yes.
do great quality work, but let things come to you rather than be
That
constantly
voice.
chasing and
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
towards things. So that was a little bit of my journey. And then
Yeah, yeah. It's wonderful to listen to you. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, but my experience of you, you have this stillness about you, right? And I think a lot of people do fear loneliness. Like I've been through my own journey with being comfortable with sort of being alone or being just with myself and being connected with myself and feeling that you can kind of move through life in a way where, as you said, things come to you and what's meant for you comes to you rather than trying to force things that were not meant for you, maybe. I did a bit of research and I understand you trained under, I think, Thom Knoles for 2 years, including 3 months in the Himalayas. It's not a casual, dabbling in meditation. Like, you've deeply understood and trained in the practice. And I'm curious to kind of learn a bit more about what training under someone like Tom and learning the practice of meditation has given you, and also what opportunities are there for leaders to be more in touch with themselves and to be more still as well.
the opportunities are massive. And in fact, just last weekend, I saw the McKinsey have put out this Instagram post saying, you should meditate. AI gives you information, meditation gives you wisdom. So the opportunities are enormous. For me, was the best thing that happened in my life was encountering Tom and getting to this journey because when we talk about transformation, the technique helped to remove years of build up anxiety that started with, grandmas and grandfathers in the Second World War saw people killed in the streets. Grandma had her house burned to the ground, and she risked to have that happen to her twice. And she was a young girl. And can you imagine the level of fear that she ended up
Stress.
in?
Yeah.
She's still alive. She's
Yeah.
95.
Oh, amazing.
And the way she coped with that anxiety was to spend most of her life in the house. And my grandfather was an adventurer, so he would go out and adventure into the world, and she just will have that presence in the house. So they found that
Um,
balance there. So massive fear, massive anxiety. And growing up, I knew that was not mine, but I
mm,
didn't know how to get it out of myself.
mm,
Because
mm,
the problem with stress is that the moment you have a pattern, I need to be afraid of something. Oh,
mm,
there is a change, a fear. Oh, there
mm,
is the recession, fear.
mm,
This fear-based administration is a little bit the way our society is rolling right now.
mm,
And if
mm,
your pattern of thinking are wired to always get and think the worst, and you think that through having fear, you're gonna save yourself, that's going to be having a detrimental effect not only to the way you think but also to your body. So
mm,
you're going to really make your body unwell, and that's what happened to me. So then meditation, what that did for me is started unwinding these accumulated stresses that were there for a lifetime, and bit by bit the body gets rid of these. And so what happens is next time the fearful event comes, which are nothing more than just changes of expectations, what you do is you have space between your automatic reaction that you normally would go into and what you could do differently this time. So to conclude, I believe if you look in the workplace, including the leaders, the entrepreneurs, including the employees, everyone has their own small collection or big collection of accumulated stresses.
Yes, yes.
The way you know it is by observing the behavior that is not optimal in the people around you. And in case of leaders, the people that lead you or the people that lead others or entrepreneurs, you can see from their behavior, because that's what ultimately stress causes, is
Mm,
disease and bad behavior.
mm,
And so there is no unique formula. If you meditate, this is going to happen to you, because every one of us has got their own little collection of different stresses. And so
stresses and accumulate.
for different leaders, it's going to look different. But what going to be the same is the discovering that happiness is not out there. Happiness is not by chasing the next client, the next million revenue, next billion.
Mm,
Happiness is within. Practice of meditation by removing those accumulated stresses awakens you to that reality.
mm,
And so if you are a happy person, then your way of running your business, your way of being with your family, your way of being with others is not like, give me more clients and then I'll be happy. Give
mm,
me your wisdom, I'll be happy. Give me this, give me that. It's like, what can I offer to you? Because I'm
yes,
already happy, but my happiness needs an outlet to be expressed. And so
yes, yes.
I move around looking for occasion to use my happiness to help others. And that's what leader really should be doing. They should be a service of other.
Mm,
But what happens today is that leaders have accumulated stresses, and they think that by having a collection of achievement, they are gonna get happy. And it
mm,
applies to every sector, even in academia. People
mm.
think that they have more knowledge, they're gonna get happy, and more knowledge. So it
That's not
happened,
true.
and that's me. Like I'm addicted to learning. I'm addicted to
Yes.
knowledge. But then I can get the whole knowledge in the relative world in the world. It's not gonna make me happy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so then you can expect to really be a true leader. And from a more practical level, so that's more the philosophical level. From a more practical level, you're gonna experience greater clarity of mind, greater stillness of mind.
Yeah.
Most of the thoughts that people have are over 90% the same thoughts they did yesterday. So how
Yes.
can you be innovative and creative if you're just having this incessant rubbish thinking,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
constant worrying and repetitive thoughts pattern? They're just occupying your mental potential that you could use to do great work,
Mm,
create, have new ideas, update the way in which we are working,
mm.
question social practices. So a still mind is a mind where you get the right thought at the right time and you act
Yes.
on it. Most of people's mind is they have
Chaos.
thousand thoughts, and most of them are not useful.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then you are calmer, and your presence is
More present.
having that uplifting effect on the people around you, and your health gets better,
Yeah.
because whatever health issue you have, stress is going to make it worse. And so
Yeah.
by meditating, having less stress, that's going to be improving. So the benefits are massive. I hope that McKinsey post is
Goes viral.
I think the great thing is happening, Ashton. I will force a consciousness revolution.
I
And that's
I
where I
completely
really
agree.
look forward to, is
Yeah.
to see a consciousness revolution. Because if AI can get better at us in doing all these tasks, what's left for us? For us,
Mm.
it's left to develop our
Yeah,
consciousness
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and be more relevant than AI is.
Yes.
Otherwise, everyone will be out of jobs if they
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
find a
yeah.
way to be relevant.
Well,
And
in
consciousness give
in
it.
investment theory, obviously I spend a lot of time dealing with money and investing people's money and things like that. There's there's this concept of a flight to quality, which is when there's a lot of volatility and economic uncertainty, then really high quality assets is where the money goes to. And I think that in today's society, with so much uncertainty and so much information and the rise of AI, there's going to be a flight to humanity, which is like people are really going to invest more time in real life experiences, invest more time in being more in touch with themselves. And so I'm quite excited for the consciousness revolution, Corinna, because I think it's actually going to be a great thing for people to invest more in themselves and invest more in understanding their mindset as well.
And you're ahead of times because you're already doing that.
Well, that's right. Well, I always say to my younger staff members, you are not your thoughts. You are the one that watches your thoughts, right? And really coming to understand that was a big part of my life and my own personal transformation. On this topic, you reference the Rig Veda in your teaching, the idea that knowledge seeks out the one who is awake. I'm interested if you could just explain, what that means in a business context, maybe for people.
You see, we create all these strategic tools to an analysis, and you are in the sector where you run all your analysis to
Yeah, yeah,
predict the future, but that's all still fragmented knowledge,
yes,
bits and pieces. And I'm not sure in your sector how much space there is for intuition. For I'm gonna do this. Like I've run all the calculation,
yes.
but then I'm gonna do this. And so what Rig Veda tell us is that knowledge seeks the ones who are awake. What does awake means? The ones that have removed all the stresses from their physiology through a meditation practice that allows the body to be rested enough. Because the body will release stress only when it rests deeply enough. And then that wakefulness that comes by having removed stress, what it does, it awakens to that reality that of that I. Who is that I that is witnessed in the thoughts? And as you keep removing stresses and meditating, your container grows. And so from a spiritual perspective, you always have been that consciousness field, which
Mm,
quantum physics calls it a unified field. You always been that. So there is nothing to, it's not that you gain consciousness. You always been that unbounded consciousness field. But your capacity to become aware of that grows. And so from a little coffee cup, you get to a mug, and then it grows and grows. And once you discover your true self, now you have the unbounded vast ocean of consciousness. And if you are awakened to that reality, now you have access to the source of all knowledge.
mm,
But nature works with relevance. So you're going to get the knowledge that is relevant for
mm,
your next action and your next action and your next action. So there is no need to accumulate to get there. I'm going to accumulate all the knowledge.
yeah.
Is a matter of, is it relevant right now? This, and as the Veda tell us that the ancient Rishi, they were able to cognize the blueprint of reality. And that's what's then summarized in the four principal Vedas,
Mm.
including.
Well, I'm a huge believer in developing your intuition and your judgment. And I wrote an article recently, which was all about how you develop taste in a world of AI, because AI kind of collapses everyone to an average outcome, a higher average outcome in some instances, but still it's a pattern recognition machine in a world where people are increasingly using tools that are producing kind of average outcomes. Being in touch with like your own particular taste, your own particular judgment, and developing and cultivating that intuition, I think as well is hugely important. You teach effectuation, the idea that the entrepreneurs act as if the future is already present, right? And I've called this, and I've articulated this in a corporate context as leading with the hypothesis, right? Like starting with a hypothesis, even if the data doesn't quite tell you that this is the case. Like, I think starting with a hypothesis and then testing that through actually building towards an outcome. And I'm curious again if you think this concept of sort of acting as if the future is already present is something that's a learnable skill, or does it require a kind of disposition that a lot of people just don't have? I'm curious.
everything can be learned. So that's my.
I believe the same thing, so that's good.
And so if that's not your natural disposition, you can still learn. It's a
Yes.
process.
Yes.
There are people that are very good naturally at that. If you look at the founder of Terranos, she took this to the very extreme.
Yes, she did indeed.
So balance is always required.
Yes, in all settings. Yeah. Let's not hold her up as the poster child for it, but
But
yes.
that's the extreme where you can go with that.
Yeah, too far. Yeah.
But how we can use the parallel of that acting as if with what the Vedic worldview tell us is that making a move, making a decision and move is always better than be paralyzed and do,
100%.
because you're gonna get information. You can
Yes.
always come back. Most of the times you can come back from that move you made if you
Yes.
realize it's not the right direction. And so that's how that acting as if it helps you to make a move in a direction, and then you're gonna gain information by
Yes.
looking at effectuation
100%.
theory. And effectuation theory then you'll develop new means. It can be new knowledge, new connection, new alliances, or you develop new goals because now you have a better understanding of where you're headed.
Mm,
So effectuation and the acting as if principle is helping you to get into action. And entrepreneurship is driven by action.
action. 100%.
Action, there is no entrepreneurship. And so I think everyone can learn it, but not everyone can learn it as long as they have the desire to do so. If no
Yes.
desire is there, then they can do different things.
Yes. Well, and maybe before we finish up, I just had two more questions for you. One was about your PhD, if it's all right. Your PhD found that the classic exploit tension in startups was actually expressed at the belonging level, as an identity paradox, not a strategy paradox. And that definitely mirrors something that I've kept seeing throughout the interviews I've been conducting. Every transformation or innovation story starts with identity, not with a plan, right? And so I'm curious, did you expect to find that, or did the data or did the research kind of surprise you?
It surprised me. It
Yeah.
really surprised me because I was asking, what was challenging, what
Yeah.
went well. So I was not asking leading questions.
Yes.
And what everyone ended up telling me was, oh, is this a tech company? Is this an insurance company? Oh, who we are. And everyone was obsessed by that, including the external stakeholder. Like, who you are? Are you insurance? Are you tech? You're two insurance, tech. So there was it became so everywhere in my data. I was like, wow. And so the conclusion of that is coming to a paper. So I'm not going to share this with you right now.
Fair enough. Coming soon.
We will have part 2 coming.
Yeah.
But the process that I'm creating is looking at these belonging cues and what founder can do when they need to start becoming awake to those belonging cues. And that wakefulness to these belonging cues can save time and can speed up the process to get to that product market fit and then scale. So that's what's coming.
Well, that sounds fascinating. I can't wait to see it once it's available, Corinna. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Before we finish, I always ask my guests the same question to finish up, and it is a question related to identity. And so, if you're okay to share, I was just hoping you could reflect on what childhood belief did you have to let go of to become who you are today?
I had to let go of the idea that if I worry strongly enough, I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
That was a hardcore, hardwired belief.
Yes.
And so I spent a lot of my young days worrying and worrying about everything with everyone. I'm so worried about this. And the more I was talking, the more I felt safe. This is going to save me. That was it.
Okay, fantastic. Well, what worry is one of those things that it hurts you twice, right? Once in the worry and once if the thing that you're worrying about does happen. And a lot of the time it doesn't, right? So, well, thank you so much, Corinna. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a real eye opener for me to kind of understand a bit about both the philosophy and the academic side of identity. And this has been the Reinventor's Mindset. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.